just little things that I had to, details that I had to put in place, reminders of things to do and all that. So, but now I've done that, I'm all yours. So, is this part 2 then?
Yeah, okay. Are you recording now?
I am recording now, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Welcome to the show, Spectre Detectives, Chris and Jana going over phone hacking part 2.
Lovely. Okay, so I'll start. Where we left it last time at the show, part 1 of you talking about the phone hacking scandal. I think the phone had stopped ringing for you, whereas it had been ringing non-stop every day, with quite, demands for you to investigate things, all kinds of demands from some of the main players. So, can you remind us what happened just to get us started after your phone stopped ringing?
Well, that was after I had the dinner date with John. And John, to remind everyone, was a private detective, is a private detective, ex-public school boy, upper end of the private detective world. He works for MI6's commercial arm. He brought me into that. Well, I knew various players in that, but he brought me into a certain agency. And so he's a little bit of a golden boy with those guys, and so he wasn't lower end, upper end. I decided to bring him into the news of the world because I had too much work, and I knew he had an office full of people to handle, like, things like when somebody wanted information on somebody. I don't like doing that because there's so many people out there that can do it, and it's just really something that somebody like John might have an office full of people that do that. Youngsters, really, they train to do it, and it's all you don't need a brain. You just get a little script to ring certain places, and it's not really about people. It's data, really, and firstly, it's illegal, so it's risky, and a lot of times these people get raided for doing that. So someone like
Raided.
John,
Mm.
yeah, by the cops, because it's illegal, and someone like John would have everything in place to make sure that if they did raid, they wouldn't find anything. And of course, he would get tipped off, so he would change his hard drives. And I'm not that kind of person. I can't think like that. I'm not slick like that. And so I didn't want to do that kind of work. I wanted to do more think pieces, more journalistic stuff, but using investigations. And so Greg had put me into hospital, and it came to a head, and I said, this is when Southern Investigation, I think, went to prison for something or other. And so I said I'd introduce him to Boyle. We went out to dinner, and that was when he gave him the phone hacking. And I felt, pretty bad about it, came home. And I remember being in two minds. I remember having the drink with Greg and
That was Greg
being,
Nisky.
yeah, the news editor, my boss back then, and he'd been my boss for a good number of years. And I, came home, and I still felt sick, I had chest pains, and I still woke up the next day and thought, oh, that was a stupid idea. I'm not going to do that. And then he rang me very eager to get his number. And I think it was because at that time there was a girl called Terania in the office, a reporter. He was having a relationship with her, and she didn't want me around because Greg and I had a relationship. She literally wanted me out. So I think possibly in his mind, he was, wanting to get rid of me, but I was too essential, and so he was quite excited about John, and so he rang me pretty early. Oh, what about John? What about John? And I said, oh, I've decided not to. And I could feel his anger. And he said, right, fine, then that's okay. What's his second name, by the way? And so I said, Burle. But it's not. It's Boyall. And
Good
I
move.
could tell, what?
Good move.
Well, not really, because he knew I was, well, I don't know if he did. I felt his anger, and I didn't like being blagged. I didn't like and it was obvious
Yeah.
that I was being blagged at that point. And I think at that point he had the investigations department, and he and Terania sat in it. Terania had never done investigations before, so
Um,
I,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
sorry.
Terania. I've never heard
Oh,
that name, that kind of name before. What was her role again? She was an office
oh,
girl.
no. She was a journalist from up north, and a northern investor. Incredibly beautiful. So bizarrely, she was attracted to Greg. Greg was really good looking back in the day. I was quite surprised she was attracted because she really was really stunning.
And she was the northerner with a name like Terania. Good lord. She's not one of us, I tell you.
Well,
No.
she comes from Ukraine like him, so I think
Oh, see. Right, got
that
you.
was the draw. That was the draw, I think. She's really pretty, looked like a fairy princess, really. And so they had started dating. Anyway, I'd gone in to the office, and Greg wasn't sitting in his usual desk. He was in, like, there was a little um separate office, but a big office. And Neville Thelbat was in there, Paul Mullen, and Greg at the back, and Terraine sitting next to him. And I remember thinking, I don't like this. I sense, I'm
Mm.
welcome here. And I was quite annoyed because Rebecca had given them that, and it was on the
Which
basis of
Rebecca is that?
Rebecca Brooks had given them that, and it was on the back of my work, and yet
Yeah.
I hadn't been acknowledged for it. I wasn't included in it. Really, I should have been invited in and asked to run it, and it should have been me sitting there, not Greg. And Greg should have been back on the news desk. And had that have happened, none of the phone hacking would have gone ahead. It just wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, I was aware of legalities, really aware, and aware of, that they print stuff that PIs dug up for them. You see, they were stupid. Journalists were always very wanting to get information, not really caring, and wanting to play James Bond. All of them, every journalist I ever met wanted to play James Bond. So this is their weakness. And so there was this investigations department. And when he rang me that morning, I sensed A, he wanted to get me out. B, it was because of Terania putting pressure on him. He was always quite weak. And C, he was trying to blag me to get his name after I decided. I thought, you are kidding, mate. And I remember slamming down the phone. I was in bed at the time and got out of bed livid, really angry, and also congratulating myself in thinking quick, giving him the wrong spelling. Because, I thought, what, are you going to look him up and approach him? Dream on. And I think he knew he's quite a sharp man. You couldn't ever lie to Greg because he would always know. He would listen, you'd tell him something and it would be a lie, and you could hear him listening. And then he'd say something like, no, go and do that again. I was like, he was
Mm.
very sharp. You could never lie to him. And so he knew, and he knew that I knew. So slammed the phone down, and I thought, sod those pair of bastards. They're not just going to use me. And I could see that they thought maybe John was where I got my sort of training from, but it wasn't. Absolutely. I worked for John for a bit, but I was trained elsewhere, and I was a far better investigator than John. In fact, John actually doesn't even investigate. He brings people in, he brings in kids, he brings in people that have done sales work before, and he trains them, he gives them scripts, and he puts them in his basement. And so that's what John does. And then he will get maybe big investigations in, and then John will do it himself. So that is, he's got kind of a network that, can get anything. So that was how I was feeling. And I remember I was in my flat and I had my aunt, as you know, was the nun, Sister Kathleen, of the Daughters of St. Paul. And at that time, I was hanging out with another nun from the convent because I used to still go over to the convent a lot, take my auntie to mass. I would be a reader at the church, and I liked taking her because we got more respect from the priest who ran it. I really liked the priest. We had a personal relationship, Father Michael Fuel and I. And when I was at the convent, I made friends with an American nun called Sister Mary Lou, and she's still there. It's a convent in Slough. And she was sending me emails back and forth. She was doing an art degree or something. We were chatting, and she said to me, "Oh, you should give up work and you should write. That's what you want to do. You don't want to be working for the press." And I had said something back to her the night before that I was overwhelmed, and I was thinking of introducing Greg Miskew to John Boyle, who I knew. And the email came through. I remember it was straight after the phone call from Greg. The email come through. You must introduce.
Ah,
And
that's
I don't know
very
what.
telling.
Well, it's not telling. I mean, I go over that again and again in my mind because it was a very important crux point. There'd be no
Yeah.
phone hacking. There'd be no phone hacking if I hadn't. I mean,
But
no one was using that. PIs weren't using that. Just Boyle. So there's no way the News of the World would have got that if it hadn't been for that crux point of that
well,
email. And pardon?
just to be clear, you did that to protect your own health and well-being because you were
So,
getting ill through overwork. So it was totally innocent, your motive for introducing them. You just wanted to reduce your workload.
hmm.
But I've got to ask, why would a nun say that you must introduce John Boyle to Greg Miskew? What would it have to do with her? I mean, did you go into loads of detail
I
about what
suppose I
was
did
going on?
go into loads of detail with her. Yeah, she was a pretty close friend. She'd been to my flat. We'd hung out. I'd
Okay.
introduced her to Hugh Burnett, the guy in Richmond I hung out with a lot.
Oh
So yeah,
yes.
she was pretty close to me, actually. And Hugh thought it was weird that I was good friends with a nun who literally had a habit, and she had a veil and a habit, and he thought, "Whoa, you were hanging out with a nun." But my aunt was a nun, so, and I'd been at
Yeah.
the convent. I'd been a nun for a certain amount of time in America, so they weren't strange bitches to me.
No.
um, but yeah, she was very involved. If she hadn't have said that, if she'd have said something else, I wouldn't have done it. And I always think,
Ah.
why? I've talked it over, like with Paul, for instance, and he says you're a people pleaser, and that's why you could lap around her and say, oh, I've done that. You're such a great person, and I mean, I don't know why it was, but I read the email and I remember, my flat, the living room. I walked back across to this other desk, picked up the phone, and I rang Greg, and I said straight away, I will introduce you to John Boyle. And I remember his voice, and he sort of cracked a little bit, and he goes, "Oh, really?" And it was really fake. It was like totally fake. You could tell he'd just been slagging me off to Terania.
Oh.
And then he was like, "Oh, well, thanks, Chris. Tonight would be good." It was so fake, and I could hear the fakeness, and yet I didn't feel the sort of hatred that I should have, really, for that kind of slimy rejoinder. And there it was. It was that evening. He was that eager, and you set it up tonight. And of course, when I rang Boyle, he was like gagging and said, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah."
Oh my
And,
God.
because we'd been hanging out, and I think he'd saw my lovely flat, the nice car, and I think he was trying to find out who I was working for. I mean, I had said, "Oh, I'm working for an ex-cop that is based in Rotherhithe," which I was, but I think he sussed that I was onto a good thing and was really sniffing around me, which is appalling when I think back because he was a multimillionaire. Um,
Mm.
but he told me that around the money was short. But people like that, when they say money is short, they're down to their last
Yeah. They're
five
not
million.
shopping at Aldi. Let's
What?
face. They're not shopping at Aldi.
No, 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 no. He and his wife would have 4 holidays a year, like in India, that kind of people. And like, oh, it's Valentine's Day. Well, we jetted off to Paris. You know that they sort of really live in the world. They really sort of own it,
Yeah.
like that. And to, he's got property in Aspen and skis and those kind of people. They need a lot of bread coming in. And when they're down to their last 10 million in the bank, they sort of start shitting it and call themselves short of money. And he was like that. And, he wouldn't have thought twice. I mean, he didn't think twice about flattening me and just taking mine and just leaving me and think, oh, well, she's this or that. Or, it's like,
It's all really dog eat dog, isn't it? The world of the rich and the world of the press. It was like two similar worlds colliding, really.
yeah. I didn't, yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that kind of psycho, it is psycho-y.
Mm,
Yeah, the press have no, no morals or no mind. And people say, oh, but you join them, but they forget that they destroyed me in a front page, calling me the devil's daughter, and I had
oh
no
yeah.
choice. I could either sign on the dole, or go and work in Tesco. But my reputation in the investigations field, which is all I'd done, and I didn't have qualifications to get something else. I didn't really have much of a choice. And I went in there, I didn't hurt anybody. I actually sometimes ruined stories, if I thought they were going after people that were poor or people, that couldn't protect themselves. I didn't like it. And I still don't like the way even non-investigative journalists screw people up, like if
Yeah.
you like somebody says something like that. Liam Neeson said something like when his friend was raped by,
Oh yes, yeah.
then he went out wanting to hit a black man. If someone like that said that to me, I would say, well, we can't write that. That will make you unpopular. But the little shit that heard that, she went out there and put it out. I don't think that's actually journalism. I just think it's like sadistic. And same with Brian Harvey, when somebody, he said, oh, drugs are okay. Somebody should have said, well, we can't say that. That'll make you look bad. Come on, mate. Because people are innocent and they just say things openly, thinking that the journalist won't be a scumbag. But mostly they are. And, they're like, ha, got you out. But it's just disgusting. That's why people hate journalists and they won't speak to them, because they know if they slip up, then they'll be in a trap.
Yeah.
It's like having a sneaky friend who's like, oh, you told me that. Oh, sorry, mate, gonna grass you now. I mean, literally, they plaster it everywhere. That's what journalists are. It's disgusting. And it's not journalism. But, not everybody who worked in tabloids was actually like that, but 80%, 80, 90% was like that. And the
Yeah,
rest of them thought
there's
of.
just to interject very, very briefly and not go off the track of the story. There's a something going on at the moment. Have you heard of Jordan Peterson,
No.
the renegade professor from Canada, who refused to use what is it, pronouns, as in the transgender sense, and got into a lot of trouble. And sort of controversy has followed him round ever since. He did a Channel 4 interview with that blonde woman, and basically he just like hammered her.
Oh,
He's very clever.
Jordan Peterson, the author.
He's written quite a lot of books, but he's a professor. He's a very clever man, and he gives people like guidance about how to live their life and stuff.
Oh, hang on. Yes, yes, yes. I've read his
Yeah.
books. Yeah, love him. Yeah.
Recently, Decca Aikenhead did an interview with him for the Times, a big interview. I mean, I don't think you see journalism like this very often nowadays, like a big spread. Um, and she interviewed him, and I think she interviewed he's got a daughter, Michaela or something, and she
Yeah,
was there.
yeah.
They recorded it because, like you said, I mean, he's been placed in the far right category
Mhm.
because he's not far right. He just doesn't agree with the current agenda and narrative. And if
Right.
you don't agree with that, you're far right and you're smeared. So he has problems with he's had problems with his mental health, but the what's come out. So she wrote this decoration and wrote this big article about him, And basically, she said that he'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that's a complete lie. He hasn't. He had problems with his mental health. He did something about it and was managing it. But you can see the point I'm getting to is it was an attempt to smear him. So therefore, if he's schizophrenic, then all these things that you said, oh well, he's obviously not very well, and you don't have to take him seriously because he's actually very, very popular and very, very influential with quite a wide range of people. But there are some people that really, really hate him, but they tend to be sort of on the extreme left wing of things and quite hysterical,
Oh,
easily led. They don't sort of listen to what he's got to say and think it through. So that to me is a recent example of the
oh,
press being used to go. It's like setting dogs on somebody, isn't it? It's
oh,
like, well, sick him, let's smear him. Well, let's get a respected name because I think she is the daughter of a politician, isn't she? Decorator Head. Do you see Decorator? Is it the daughter of a Tory politician from the past? Well, you know her name if you're interested in journalism.
oh.
So get somebody with a little bit of clout and get them to do this long piece so it looks quite professional. And so the daughter's done a thing, like an answer back on her what she's got to show herself. And now it's backfired on them because now she's just being asked to appear on all the shows and podcasts that are sort of like against the narrative. I wouldn't call them alt-right because they wouldn't put themselves in the alt-right category. They're just not going along with what you're told to believe about people. So it's still alive and well, that kind of thing.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
well it's like, it's like slum landlords who won't fix a thing, and then they say things like, oh, it's good business, and people that rip people off, oh, it's good business. Yeah, it goes hand in hand with that. It's just hurting people, and that's why people hate journalists. They just hate them, and it's
yeah.
because of that kind of, haha, got you, haha, trick you.
Well, they can ruin people's lives and
Yeah.
reputations, can't they?
Oh, it happened to me when I, did that interview with the Sunday Express in LA, to pay for therapy out there at the Primary Institute. And a journalist, was like babysitting me as they do, they put me up in a hotel, the St. James on Sunset Boulevard. And I'd given this big interview, about Brady. They got a lot, this, visit alone. He'd let me see him alone. I'd sat there for a couple of hours with him. They'd got his letters where he'd said, "Are you afraid I might bite you?" and all this kind of stuff. And they got a lot, and they paid the money straight to the Institute, which I needed, and which is not much. It was to cover therapy, not what it should have been. And they had their middle page spread. And soon as that was all put to bed, I went for a drink with the journalist who was watching me, Brendan Bourne. And we were sitting there and he said, "You've been so upset, you've been in tears, what's the matter?" And I said, "Well, when I was sitting with Brady and left alone with him, he lunged at me and sort of, shoved his tongue down my throat, licked my face, and just sort of
Oh,
spat all over my face,
oh
basically."
my
And
God, what a
yeah,
hideous thought.
I know. And since then, I said, since then, I have felt, I'm having these visions of his crimes. I feel almost as if something's come into me, and it's really, I don't see any way out of it. And he was going, "That's terrible." And I told him like every tiny little detail. Next day, front page. And it's just bang out of order, I didn't want to, and then I get criticized of, "Oh, you come out and said that," but I didn't come out and say anything. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Mm.
the way they behave, even to someone else who's a journalist. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's like, "Oh, too late, mate. You said it now," kind of thing. It's really gutter snipe
They
stuff. It's
really are bar stewards, aren't they, some of them?
yeah,
Um, but
yeah. And
talking
then the
controversial,
others that,
sorry,
want to do something, there's good journalism. They get sort of tarred with the same brush.
yeah, and there are some good journalists out there. It's true.
I mean, I was pretty good. I mean, I did stuff over in Northern Ireland. I sort of, you know, and push myself and did some good stuff. But now if you do an interview, you know, you get trolled, say, oh, you cheat their money, and well,
Yeah, but then again, on the other side, look at people like Katie Price who use the press to make money. Do you know what's happened recently? The latest in the
yeah,
Daily Katie Price, as it seems. So you know her son Harvey.
yeah, he had the vax and it was bad.
Yeah, so he had a bad reaction, and so she's gone. I think it was an exclusive on the front page of the Sun, Sunday Sun. Um, and all right, that's Katie Price. That's what she does. But then again, when you think about it, if that was your disabled son, and he had been so heavily trolled and harassed and bullied
Mm,
that you got a petition together and presented it to number 10, which is where the
mm.
Prime Minister lives, wouldn't you think that making, quite a big thing about that was rather unscrupulous and rather unwise?
Well,
Furthermore,
thing is,
furthermore,
Katie,
don't you think that at this point in time where we're sort of like at a real pivot point as far as the coronavirus goes, as in people getting vaccinated, all the rest of it, that's going to put some people off getting vaccinated. So
oh,
it,
sure.
irresponsible unto,
To
sorry,
be fair on Katie, she gets followed around by the press, so that would have been leaked anyway. There was always I've worked on so many stories about Katie Price. I mean,
oh really? I
oh yeah,
didn't know that.
oh yeah, and I've spoken to her as well. She's actually really nice to speak to. So her life, I mean, she just goes for a shit and it's news. She wouldn't have gone to them. They would have come to her. And of course, when these celebs go places, they get, you know, people ring in and bloody bloody
To
blah.
get a bit of cash, yeah, well, that's true, but she does seem to give off this image that she actively courts the press. I think personally.
Yeah, but
So,
she is really nice. I mean, I suppose she's very humble, believe it or not.
okay. I mean,
Humble. Yeah.
I don't believe in slagging people off on a personal basis. I don't. Obviously, I mean, famous people get up your nose. I mean, I'm not a fan of Nippy Cranky at the moment and the SNP and what the stuff that she tried to do Alex Salmon over, didn't she? Blood
Hmm.
proper. So I don't have feelings about people on a personal level because that'd be ridiculous because I don't know them on a personal level. But however, how people present, but of course, like you say, like you've experienced it yourself, how you are presented or how you present can get so twisted.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
So, hang on, where do we get to the story? Oh yeah, the Boyle and coming into
yeah.
the newspaper.
Well,
So,
I was going to ask you about talking controversial figures. I was going to ask you about your time with Mazza, if you want to talk about Mazza Mahmood.
um, do I? Sorry, I was just wondering how much energy that would expire.
Do you want to leave that for another time?
Yeah,
Can we
probably.
do? We'll do a show just about Mazza. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got to Boyle. So it's all set up. It's a big bromance, and boom, the baby that comes out of the bromance is phone hacking, and here we go.
Yeah. However, of course, he didn't like using Boyle. It didn't last very long. I kind of knew that it wouldn't last very long because they're both, you know, they're both different men. But what I find interesting, and I was watching Brian Harvey's bits, his videos, and you know, he goes over different points and he thinks the cops are involved in it. Um, the cops and John were really close, really tight, and he obviously didn't like it when they stole his office boy. So basically, he would have the basement and he would bring in um, kids, sometimes people that didn't really have any other work. Glyn Mulcair was an ex-footballer, so he obviously was looking in the newspaper for sales jobs and stuff like that. And so John would have put out, a little advert to bring in people like that to get them cheaply. Then he would give them these scripts of what to say. And so he also had another boy called Andy Gadd. So when he started with Greg, I think that it went between him and Greg, it went going perhaps a year, I would say. I'm not really sure of times on that. At that point of my phone not ringing, and I also worked for the Sunday Mirror. The phone stopped ringing from the Sunday Mirror as well. I went off to Belfast. I was going out with Paul, then he was from Belfast. He said he wanted to go home. I was doing all the Real IRA stories and just flying out there nearly every weekend before I met Paul. And so he said he was going. So I decided then to go to live in Belfast. So that's what I did. I packed up and I went over there. And so I wasn't really very in touch of what was going on. I was working with Alex Mamacek in their Belfast office, and I was doing purely IRA stories and purely UDA stories and getting good front pages with my name on, which
So that was the Belfast office of which newspaper?
News of the World.
And Alex Marinchek was
The news editor.
right.
And I started working with Liam Clark of the Sunday Times as well and get my bylines in the Sunday Times. So I was doing well over there, despite the money wasn't as good as in London. But I was flying back and forth now and again. I mean, there were things that John couldn't do. And so he was like now and again. And I was flying back to sort of meet up with Alex and have dinner with Alex. That's when he introduced me to CIA in the Rizzoli bar at the Ritz. So I was very in with Alex at that point. Alex was doing a lot of hacking, and I won't say who was doing that for him. That was Operation Toluta, who was investigating that. They came to see me as well as Wheaton, obviously. And so what happened with Greg and Boyle? They didn't get on. And of course, Boyle would have charged a lot of money for that.
Yeah.
He was really, the upper end of the private investigations world in London, run by ex-MI6 officers, and people say, oh, hang on, it must have been MI5, you're not telling the truth. No, for some reason, it's always, I mean, you do get ex-MI5, but they tend to be the lower end. They come out of MI5. People like Gary Watkinson, who I worked alongside at Nationwide Investigations, they tend to not do very well. And I don't know what, not being mean about him. Now he's got his own agency up Marylebone, but he'll probably, if he ever heard this, he would say, oh, I am upper end, but not. He's not upper end. They don't climb as high as the ex-MI6 officers. Yet, like Michael Oatley, who runs Company X, they do really well. And they do really well because they have their connections all over the world. And like the one that John Boyle introduced me to, I won't say his name, I've signed an NDE around him, and he's too heavyweight to ever talk about anyway. Let's call him William. William knows the Russian government, knows people out in Libya. And so when his phone rings, he will quote things like 50 grand a job, 10 grand a job. So it's like a different world to you sort of average PIs and even the really classy PIs. It's a total different, and they call those agencies MI6's commercial arm because obviously they still do work for the government as well, but they also do work for other governments, and it's really the work that comes in there. It's absolutely awesome. I loved working for William until the point where nearly every job he was sending me on, like spying on nuclear plants and stuff like that, it was dangerous and it involved, possibly getting beaten up. And he would say, this is dangerous, by the way, I just have to tell you that. And in the end, I sort of got sick of it. I thought, I'm just sick of this. Everything that, where's the work that doesn't involve danger. It gets passed to his son, basically. And so I just got sick of it, and I had to pull out, especially after I had Arthur. And so these agencies, John, was a golden boy for. He was really well thought of, and so he would charge high money. Obviously, I mean, he has his £8 million house out in Peasmarsh. He had offices along Buckingham Gate. He would charge a lot. So when he was doing this for the News of the World, obviously it was going to be really high. I would say it would be something like 5 grand per hack, I would say.
Big earners.
Oh yeah. And he told me, this is after it all shit hit the fan, that when they started doing it, that it was a little bit of a con job. Like, they say, so Greg might say to them, oh, get Sarah Ferguson's answer messages. And he would say, oh, yeah, we'll do that. And they would find out that Sarah Ferguson's phone would be on the generic 1234 code, because most people back in that day, they didn't change their security code. I know I didn't. You just don't think anything of it. So most people's was 1234. And what they were doing was finding out, oh, everyone's is 1234, and changing it so it was something they alone could access. Because most people, as you know, never bother getting their goddamn answer message from a different phone, because their mobile's always with them. I mean, why would you use someone's phone to access your messages? So they were doing that for a long time, and the press, being stupid, were sort of paying them money for nothing, basically. And so it got to a point where Greg started saying that John was greedy, and then of course John, ridiculously, because I don't know why anybody would do this, was letting his client, his client that was worth a lot to him, the News of the World, speak to the boys in the basement. And one of them was Mulcair. I think it was one of the main ones. There was another guy, Andy Gadd. There was a few down there. And he was letting Greg's calls go to the secretary and go straight downstairs, while John swanned around London with the ex-MI6 guys, and, just sort of, making money and that kind of thing. That's how John would talk, like that. And he's got his little emerald green cravat.
Oh
And
my God.
super good looking. He looks like Dirk Bogarde. He looks exactly like Dirk. And you would never see a photo of him online. He's a ghost online. You never see anything connected with him, which, that's who he is. Anyway, so Greg's calls were going down to the basement. Greg, in super sneaky style of, this is Greg all over. Like, I started doing surveillance for the News of the World, and I was bringing in ex-army guys, and some of them were ex-SAS as well. And I was feeding, so Greg would maybe want a surveillance, he would want 4 army guys, and I would bring these army guys in. I had an advert in the Yellow Pages, and lots of army guys would ring me. And so I would sift them out who was good at surveillance, mostly on bikes. And they were my boys. And what he would do, he would say, oh, Chris, come for a party, come for a drink. Why don't you bring some of your boys? And I would bring them along, and he would give out his card and say, ring me, ring me. And so I didn't ever I'm not a greedy person. I would never take that much on top for, I would say pay them something like £50 an hour and maybe take £10 for myself. But no, not good enough for Greg. He would then want to get their numbers and ring them direct, not ring me. And I don't know why he did that, because I, would never take money on top. I would let him speak to them sometimes directly, but it would be Greg's way to just to get their numbers. And he did it with John. Now, I'm somebody, well, I was really angry when he did it once, when there was this guy called Martin, and I brought him up to the office one time, and Greg was there. And we went into, the back office. We were having a chat over a certain job. We went to leave, and I went back over to Greg, and I looked down at his desk, and there was Martin's card. And I thought, this, it's kind of sickening. I just brought someone up there, and he had asked him for his card. And the whole thing was just, it's dirty to behave like that. It's disgusting. It's not right. But he had that. I remember leaning down and going, "Oh, there's something of mine there on your keyboard," and ripping it up in front of him, put it in his bin. I thought, you don't do that. You don't do that to me. But he got that Martin's number. He got his number and he was using it. And I only found that out recently when I bumped into Martin in London. And he said to me, I was doing a lot of work, Greg used to run. And I thought, oh, really? Okay, loads of years have passed. I'm still pissed about that, actually. And so it was his way. He was a control freak. He wanted to be a private detective himself. He didn't think News Digital was sexy enough for him. He liked like the James Bond. They loved the James Bond thing. And so anything like controlling surveillance boys, oh, I want to do that. Even though he didn't know jack shit about surveillance, like how many people you'd need on a surveillance, what to do. And Martin took the piss out of him. I mean, when I was talking to him recently, when I saw him in London, he said, oh, most of the time I didn't even bother turning up for the surveillance. I would just say, yeah, I'm there, Greg. So he wouldn't know how to handle those guys. But, Greg was Greg, and massive ego, and he got in that position. And he did the same. It's okay doing it with me. Everyone takes a piss out of me. Everybody, nicks my things and nicks my books. And, I've sand kicked in my face constantly. But he decided to do it with Boyle. And it's so stupid. It's just so crass. And the idea of it, I can't believe Nick Davies left this pivotal point out of his book, but there we are. Nick has a little, I think actually, because I've been talking about it recently to people making documentaries, I think Nick Davies left it out because without that pivotal point of how stupid they were to screw with someone so innately powerful. And that was their downfall because John Boyle tore down the News of the World. Now, if you take that out of the equation, who looks sexy? Who looks James Bondish? Well, it's Nick Davies, isn't it? Because Nick Davies was the one who investigated the News of the World. Nick Davies and the Guardian tore them down. Well, they did.
Give me a break.
Well, they didn't. It fell. It fell by itself, and they crashed. But that's not in Nick Davies' book. And why isn't it in Nick Davies' book? Because then Nick Davies doesn't look like he's Batman. The one that got inside this great thing. Well, it wasn't a great thing. It was stupid, and they had screwed up, and so it fell by itself. It fell into the Guardian's lap. It didn't need investigating. So his investigative book looks that's why he's left out the story, which leaves me livid because it's the crux of the story, and without it there's no truth, and without it, of course, London PIs look stupid because they never wanted to, most of them steer clear of the press. Number two, if they do work for the press, they're intelligent about it. John Boyle never would have got them into trouble like this. I mean, he would shred everything in his office. He would regularly change his hard drives. I mean, they never, even if they'd got raided, he would have been tipped off by his top cop contacts, which he was regularly. And so they never would have got in this trouble. But no, Greg got his little office boy, didn't know anything about anything, nothing about security, nothing about shouldn't hack royal family and nothing about, we shouldn't put that information in the newspaper after you found it out. He didn't know anything, and Greg seduced it. Come out to dinner with me, come here, took him out to dinner, said, look, if you leave, we'll give you 100 grand a year contract. And they never put PIs under contract, never. We'll put you under contract, we'll make you a member of staff, and you'll be a News of the World person. I think they even got him a press pass.
So they groomed him in effect, didn't they? Glenn Mulcair, they groomed him.
Yeah.
He paid a big price for that because they used him. He was a scapegoat.
Exactly, and it was such a stupid thing to do. I mean, would you even do that? Say if you knew someone that was really hard ass, and not in a gangster type of way, but I told Greg about who John was. I said he knows 14th, and he's really, he does know the sort of hard boys. Nobody screws with him. As well as knowing the sort of hard types, he also knows obviously he's well connected, powerfully. You just don't shit on people like that. You don't shit on people like that. But back at the time, Miscue thought that he would never find out. Miscue told Mulcair, he said, go back to John, tell him you're going back to football and just leave. And then what they did, and I think it was Andy Coulson must have said yes to this, or Phil Hall, my ex-boyfriend, who was in Andy's position, agreed with it. They would have had to. It wouldn't have been Greg doing it alone.
Chris? I've lost you. I can't hear you, Chris. I don't know what's happened.
Well,
you're back. Right. Yeah, I don't know what happened then. You just stopped.
Okay, so he had like a gangster mentality. So anyway, they groomed him. He went to Boyle and said, "Oh, I decided to go back to football now." I mean, someone that Greg described as thick as two short planks. And then John laughed when I told him what Greg had said and said, yeah, he was not the sharpest pencil. So they got someone who was, a bit, he was a footballer, sportsman, not someone who's canny and sort of, so that, yeah, they groomed him, brought him in. I don't think he should have done prison actually because of what happened, how they acted. And they did this kind of stuff with me, whereas they tell me, oh, go to a nightclub, score drugs off somebody. And I'd say, oh, isn't that illegal? Because can be a bit gullible. I said, no, you're covered by the news of the world. They would have told it, they blagged me in that way, they would have blagged him in that way. So, you can do anything because it's in public interest. So you don't worry about, and he kept all these notes, and private investigators never keep notes, but he kept all these notes. It's just kind of like Carry On Spying. Not in Nick Davies' book, I have to add, because he can't look like Batman if he's just bringing down some poor schmuck that they've groomed. So he got taken, given the treatment at the Pont de la Tour. He was telling all his football mates that this happened, poor sod. And meanwhile, back at the Batcave, I came back from Northern Ireland and got a flat, and I was pregnant, and I went to see Greg. I said, can I have lunch with you? And I'd still kept in contact, obviously, because I was in with Alex so strongly in Belfast. And we went and had lunch, and I said, I want my investigations work back. Now, you've had a long enough with John Boyle. And I don't think he can do what I did. I just don't understand what's going on, because I don't think he can do the think pieces that I can. I was good at that, and I was still doing bits and bobs for the Daily Mail on that, and in that way where they'd come to me with a problem. So I thought, how is he solving that? So I said to him, how are you solving those big think pieces you would pressure me to do? And he said, because we don't use old style investigations where we question people and have to think of a way into a story. And I thought, well, why don't you? And we were sitting at the bar at that point, and he said, because we've gone high tech. And I thought, well, what do you mean high tech? And he said, like pinging. We know what people are saying to each other. And I thought, this is absolutely illegal, And being in the world of private investigators, you know what people are doing. I would be sitting in nationwide investigations. Sometimes people would come in and they would start doing stuff, and the rest of us would look at them and we'd think, oh, hang on, mate. And we'd tell, Stuart, whoever was in charge, and they would get just dragged out by their ear. I mean, because everyone can do that kind of thing, but you don't do it. You don't do it. And I thought, oh, that's illegal. That's naughty. I couldn't believe what he was saying and the sort of childish way he said it as well, like telling me the News of the World, a newspaper, an organization is doing stuff like that. I couldn't believe it. I thought, surely he's just like over exaggerating or something. And we then went to lunch, had the lunch. All the time I was thinking, I can't wait to talk to people like Gary Watkinson and say, what are they playing at? People that have been in MI5 and know the score of, all this kind of high tech stuff and pinging. And I didn't know much about pinging and all that high tech, the sort of hacking side of things. And so I thought, I can't wait to get on the phone to Gary. And because we talk a lot, Gary and I, back then, maybe every other day about this and that. What, he was a personal friend. So over lunch, though, Greg kept speaking to someone called Glyn. And I remember even what I had spaghetti, and I couldn't believe, I felt quite annoyed because he had always been like that with me. Like 8 o'clock in the morning, my phone would ring and then it wouldn't stop till 10 o'clock at night. And then usually it was Greg saying, I'm at the Old Rose, won't you pop round for a drink? And that was how my days were passed. And even the weekend. And often he would come round. My port would say, Greg's downstairs, come down, or he would come up. And I was almost like his PA, because it's an investigative newspaper. And so there wasn't one story that went in that paper at one point that I didn't have or he didn't ask my advice on. And
Interesting.
yeah, and I was good. I was good, but then I'd been doing it since I was 16 and I had a strong sixth sense. And so, yeah, everyone in the business knew I was good. And that's why I thought, well, nobody can overtake me. Nobody can take that from me. Certainly not John. I mean, John's a bloody socialite. He's a smart guy and he's loved by those guys. He's got power, but that's because he does data. He accesses data. I didn't know he'd moved into all this hacking stuff, but I suppose it makes sense because that's what he does. So there I was eating my spaghetti, telling Greg I was pregnant and I need money, obviously, for the baby. And I want my job back. And he was saying, oh, we don't do that anymore. And I was sitting there thinking, what? What are you saying? What? And he sort of casually said it as if, what? And I thought, what am I supposed to do? And then during this lunch where he was basically telling me there was nothing for me, and I didn't want to carry on doing real IRA stories for the Sunday Times because I got on top in Belfast, and the real IRA leaders were coming around my house and the UDA leaders were coming around my house. And one was saying, oh, the other's got you under surveillance. And what are you? And I'd fled Belfast, but I was still paranoid about them. And I didn't want to do stories about any of them. I'd just had quite enough of them. And I needed an income, especially for, to support a baby. And he was telling me there was no room at the inn. And I thought, no, it's not going to happen. And I noticed he was on the phone to someone called Glyn so many times, 10, 20 times during our lunch. And I thought, that's your PI. That is your PI. I knew because he spoke to him in the same way he used to speak to me. And he was like leaning on this guy. I thought, that's no journalist, mate. Although he was careful what he said, he kept glancing up at me and going, can't speak now, but you carry on with that. And I thought, really? And I knew. Anyway, couldn't wait to get away from the lunch where he basically said, oh, goodbye. And you're kidding me, aren't you? I thought. And, because I'd given them front pages for so long, I thought I deserved something, not to be told no room at the inn. And I got home trembling with anger. And I thought, I'm going to try and find out what's going on here. And weirdly, the first person I thought to phone was John. And I hadn't spoken to him for about a year because I was, angry about him somehow eating the porridge out of my bowl. And I said to him, what's going on with the News of the World? How come you're taking all my work? It's not fair. I'm pregnant here. And he goes, haven't worked for them, Chris. He said, haven't worked for them for a while. Now, I'm not sure about timelines here or how long it was that he did work for them, but I know that he was getting paid regularly and then he ran up a bill of $250,000. And they basically, when they pulled out more care, they cut him off. So they wouldn't answer his calls, but he was still owed $250,000. And he said to me, I even had to blackmail Coulson. He had to go to Coulson and say, I'm going to blackmail you. I'm going to go to all these celebrities that you and royalties and politicians, mainly politicians, I think, that you've been putting under surveillance and in various ways. And I'm going to tell them. So they paid up. So he did that. So he's heavy. He doesn't. They weren't going to get away with not paying him $250,000, but they thought that they were. They thought he was me, a pushover. Anyway, so there they were with Mulcair. So I said to Boyle, "What are they doing then?" And he goes, "I don't know. Why don't you find out?" And I said, "Well, I have found out. I just had lunch with Miskew, and he's using a PI called Glyn." And I said, "I'm just going to ask around the industry and find out who that is." And he goes, "Well, you don't really have to ask around, Chris, because it's my office boy." And he was so angry, was really angry. He said, he came to me and told me he was leaving. He said, "Stupid me." And, someone like that never says stupid me. Inside, they're already planning what they're going to do. I couldn't actually believe that they did that. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But
Mm.
lo and behold, they did. And John had every spit and cough bit of information, obviously his home address, what he knew, what he was doing. I didn't know what he was doing. And he said, "They're finished." He said, "I'm going to finish them. I'm going to finish them. They don't do that to me." And I would say that he just rang his cop friends and, got them to listen outside Mulcair's house. So all that about blaming Clive Goodman and blaming, or saying the Guardian investigated it. No, it was John that pulled it down.
Sorry, who was Clive Goodman?
Well, Clive Goodman, the royal editor, people blamed him. People said, "Oh,
Ah,
but
okay.
he was somebody, that used him on a job. It's not Clive's bloody fault." And so yeah, John pulled them down. And there was another. This is why when I watch Brian Harvey's things, I always think, why doesn't he bring this up? Why doesn't he? Because we used to speak often, why doesn't he bring up John Boyle? He's a celebrity. I talk about him. Nobody gives a shit. I mean, because, I've been written out of the story. I am in the back of Nick Davies' book, is the list of private investigators that they use. And I'm there and I'm on page 199, but he's called me York. So he's written me out of the story. Therefore, when he writes me out of the story, he writes out John Boyle out of the story. He writes out what happened. He writes out that Mulcair's not actually a PI. And then, of course, as I was saying, the Judd Apatow film gets where they say, "Oh, a PI did this, a PI." Well, PIs in England are pretty smart cookies, Even on the lower end, there'll be ex-cops. They don't do that for the press. So
So there's been a
they,
narrative established by Nick Davies then, really, hasn't
oh,
there?
Nick Davis has done the whole thing. James Hanning, who I know, we fell out recently over, he did a story about me blagging Diana. I didn't want it done. He did it for Byline, and we met for dinner. He's the ex-Independent on Sunday editor, and he is angry about it. He wrote a book called The News Machine, and he wanted to write about John, and he said, "Oh, but the Guardian will do it because the Guardian got me more legal resources." And when Nick's book came out, he was disgusted at Nick, and he was angry that he'd written a bit about John, but his book got ignored, and Nick's book got all the attention, and yet it's just rubbish. I mean, it's not even it's just rubbish.
So
And
is the Judd Apatow film that's going to be made, is that going to be based on Nick Davis's book then?
yeah, yeah.
So yet more propaganda then, basically.
But why? I mean, I don't understand why. Why? I mean, and another thing, I wanted to mention to Brian Harvey, because he's got a voice, people listen to him. There was another office boy down there, and when Mulcair went over, he brought his friend. Now, when Greg left the News of the World, he went to form a news agency, and to some extent, Mulcair was kicked out. There was emails from Coulson that went to Greg, no, went to someone, I can't remember, and said, "We've got to get rid of Greg's investigation man." So when Greg left, they wanted Mulcair out. Specifically, Andy Coulson wanted him out. And this is what happens because they believe that PIs are loyal to their handlers on the newspaper. And so they wanted Mulcair out. And why they wanted him out, and again, this is not covered either. John Boyle's other office boy called Andy Gadd, he had by this time approached the new News of the World editor called Ian Edmondson, and he was working doing hacking, phone hacking, cyber email hacking for Ian Edmondson. Now I know this, Ian Edmondson's listening, because I was working for Ian Edmondson. Now I was also working for the Sun at this point, I think 2000, in the 2000s, 2008, 2009, going backwards from there. And Chris Farrow from The Sun had asked me, there was the Elephant Man drug trial, and he had asked me to investigate the German drug company. And Ian Emerson from the News of the World, he barely would ring me and ask me to do stuff. Anyway, rang me and said, will you investigate the drug company out in Germany? And I said, yeah. And he said, but hang on a minute, Chris, I know you're doing it for someone else. And I said, no, I'm not doing it for anyone else. No. He goes, yes, you are. Yes, you are. He said, you were rung today at 2:00 in the afternoon by Chris Farrow from The Sun, and you were asked to investigate the German company. I said, no, I wasn't. He said, look, you can be honest with me and you can get double your payment. He said, and I tell you what, he said, I'll give you another double payment on top of that. He said, but you give me the results first. He said, if you're honest with me and say you're doing it for them. He said, because he said, I know you were rung at 2:00. And I remember thinking, how would he possibly know? So I said, no, I wasn't. He said, come clean. I said, no, I wasn't asked to do it. I'll just be doing it for you. He went, wrong answer, Chris. He said, I'm not going to ring you again. He said, if you're going to lie to me, and slammed the phone down. And lots of my messages were going in my answered box. And I remember Clive Goodman ringing me one day and saying, Chris, be careful because people are listening to voicemails now on Fleet Street. And I remember not really listening to him and not paying any heed. But I then started getting accused from the Sun of leaking my stories to other newspapers. They said your stories appearing in the Sunday Mirror that we've given you to check out. Stories are appearing in the News of the World, and you're leaking them. Stop leaking them, or we won't give. And I thought, I've worked in Fleet Street for years. I've never leaked stories. Just don't do it because it's everyone's individual property. Even socially, I wouldn't talk about stories. Even if a story hadn't got in the paper, I would never talk about it. And they were accusing me of that, and I thought that's bang out of order. But looking back now, I think it was Andy. I think it was Ian Edmondson. In fact, I know it was Ian Edmondson, and he had hacked me on that day, and so he knew I was wrong at 2:00. And he was hacking me. Obviously, it was a mine of information. I would be rung and told stories and told to check them out. So Ian was listening into them, and that's a good story. That's a good story. Probably the ones he didn't want, passing them over to the Sunday Mirror, with whom he had a relationship with. So there's another hacker. Well, there's two hackers. Firstly, there's everyone that John did, and there's everyone that Andy Gadd did. I mean, these people have escaped any kind of spotlight. And thanks to Nick, investigating extraordinaire. And of course, when the movie comes out, they'll be left out too.
So Glenn Mulcair went to prison, didn't he? How long did you go to prison for? Can you remember?
Greg went to prison. I think Greg got beaten up in prison because he said to me,
Greg Whiskey went to prison as well.
Yeah. He got beaten up. He said to me one day, I'm going to tell you what happened to me in my cell. He was really angry with me. He said, he rang me, it was like fairly recently. He said, oh, you're like a little rat. You go hither and thither telling everyone your story. I thought, well, why shouldn't I tell everyone my effing story? And I'll keep doing it, actually. I don't care if he thinks I'm a rat. Who cares? And he said, one day I'll tell you what happened to me in my cell. I don't know. Maybe he was raped. I think either raped or beaten up. But he was really upset about it.
Probably being
a little rat, but what?
He's calling you a rat after the things he did. He's got a bit of a cheek, hasn't he? Bloody hell! He's not exactly Mr. Morality.
He called me. He said you're something small and furry. It might have been a mouse, so I said.
Oh.
I was really upset. I remember I got this phone call off him. He said that then he started insisting that I worked with Hacked, insisting that I give them all my writs advices, say anything I'd done that I shouldn't have done, which was nothing actually. I was too smart to do anything illegal for those little shit bags. And so I hadn't done anything. I could give them my remittance advices till the cows come home. But I still hadn't done anything, you know. And he said, you've got to work with Hacked Off. I said, they burgled me. He said, oh,
Yeah.
don't shit. You're an idiot. You should work with them. And I found out later he was getting money off Hacked Off,
Yeah, I was going to say he'll be getting backhanders.
which, you know, there he
Sorry.
is working for Murdoch for years and years on a massive high salary, and then going to work for Hacked Off. Who does that?
Well, people with no scruples, and he's just continuing behaving how he behaved all along by the sound of it. But just to
He's
give the
never
reader
looked.
this, sorry.
He's never looked at himself, and you know, like looked at himself.
Well, probably he doesn't want to now because it's too horrible. Just to give the listeners some sense of a timeline. Um, when did things start to unravel with the phone hacking? You say that the Guardian claimed that it was their investigation that kind of busted everything wide open. Can you tell us when did things start to unravel and when did it all start to get exposed?
Well, he came to me. He came to me. Do you know, I can't remember the year. I was writing to the Hillside Strangler to do a book on him, and I got emails. I don't know. I mean, I moved into a house in St. Margaret's in 2009. It might have been any time from 2009. And he approached me through a girl, Jenny, his little assistant, and Jenny was saying, "Oh, I heard you, work. You're a private detective, work for the papers." This is when Sean Hall was still alive, and he said, "Would you talk to me?" And I thought, well, I'm not going to talk to you. I'll talk to Davies directly. And
Mm,
I was curious what he was like. So she said, would you meet him? And I said, well, yeah, obviously. Because she's saying, would I meet her? And I thought, actually, I think I did meet her. I think I did meet her. And then said, I'll speak to Davies. And so he arranged to meet me at a tennis club. And so I was just holding on to my subscription to this gym stroke tennis club, the Hogarth in Chiswick. So we arranged to meet there in the bar, and he was there. I sat down. Oh, pleased to meet you. Nice looking, very nice looking man indeed, and very sort of kind. I'm kind. I'm the good guy, and talks like that, and I said, he said, I know you had a relationship with Greg Miskew. So I said, oh, okay. Really, that's interesting. I thought I'm not going to admit anything to him. And then he said, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about John Boyle. And as soon as I heard he knew about Boyle, I really went hot and cold inside. And I thought, oh shit, I'm not going to shit on Boyle by coughing to this guy. And I said, I don't know anyone called John Boyle. And he said, well, you do. And I said, well, I think I've heard of the name, but I have never met him. And he said, well, I think you have. And, I heard this and that. And, would you go on record? And so we had a nice lunch. And I said, I will think about it, because he was so nice. He was really nice. And he gave me a lift home. He said, oh, I'm going to get you a copy of my book I've written, White Lies, which he did, a hardback copy signed. And he was really sweet. And he said, I've been followed on the way to meet you. And I said, oh, who by? And he said, doesn't matter. And he said, but it is dangerous, all this. And then he said to me, there's very powerful people backing me. And I said, what, the Guardian? And he goes, no, left wing people, politicians. And I said, oh, he said, so don't be afraid. And I thought, well, I'm not afraid. Well, of Boyle, but how can he protect me from, but I wasn't afraid about talking about the news of the bloody world. Possibly ignorant of me at that point, since I, thinking of Daniel Morgan and Sean Hoare, but never mind, let's not talk about that right now. And so I said, no, I'm not afraid. And he said, would you go on the record then, not to speak about ball, but to speak about your time at the News of the World? So I thought, well, I was pretty seduced by him because he was so nice and so posh, and he'd been to Oxford, and he gave me a run home and came into my house, and you know, I had made a friend. I'm a sucker for all that sort of I am now your friend. And that's how he got on. I am now your friend. And what do you need, Christine? He said, I'll give you a contract to spy on Greg as well. This is as well as asking me to go on the record. I'll give you a contract to spy on. He didn't use the word spy. He said, record conversations to Greg and talk about phone hacking. So I agreed, even though I thought I can't do it because I still, had feelings for Greg. So I thought, I can't do that. I can't. And I even went to try and do it. But I just thought, no, I can't. But I told Nick Davies that I could because he said, I give you $2,000 in a contract. And I still
So
got
another groomer in effect.
yeah, and I've still got
Yeah.
that in case Nick's listening and thinking, oh, you've had your laptop stolen, you haven't got a copy of that. No, no, no. I have got a copy of that because I sent it to a friend. So got a copy of that, this contract, and he said to help him with investigations. Didn't say blatantly at Greg. He also said included John Boyle in that, but I think he knew, I wasn't going to do that, and but he said try to, and obviously I wouldn't, and so then yeah, he gave me this contract, paid me $2,000 up front, and then also he said, what else can I do for you? What do you want in life? One of those people, I am now your best friend. I'm going to be a really good friend to you. And do you have any problems in life that powerful me can solve? And I said, well, yeah, I want to get out to interview the Hillside Strangler in America. I haven't got the money. It's £800 per ticket to get there. And I knew I'd have to take my son, so that would be 800 plus 400 and plus a hotel. And so I said I need someone to pay me, and plus also I'd want them to publish the story. I'm going to interview him. He's up for parole, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, Chris. I will get you a spot in the Guardian's magazine, Saturday magazine they have." And so he introduced me to Merope Mills, the editor there. Merope Mills said, can you write 3,000 words about what you know about Bianchi so far? So we'd been exchanging letters. I did 3,000 words. I told her he'd invited me on Valentine's Day, which he had, which was weird. Bianchi's not really like that, I think it fell on that day, but she made a lot about that. And she said, could we call it Valentine's Day with the Hillside Strangler? I said, I know,
Sorry.
gullible must fly. I said, sure, I don't
Oh,
mind.
that's sick.
I don't mind about my reputation.
Oh, God.
I know. So I said, sure, you can do that. You're middle class, I'm working class Merope, so I'm gonna lick round you. So she get me a contract. I think £1,000 up front. Or was it 1,500? It was enough to cover the tickets. Anyway, Nick sat down when we met again at my tennis club. He brought the contract and he said, it was quite funny because he said to me, I needed a new settee, right? I had a hole in it. This is how personal he got. He said, right, here's the money. I've got you 1,500 off Merope Mills. I've talked her up to it. This is the cost for the ticket. So it must have been £2,000. This is the cost for the ticket. And again, I've got that stored with a friend. I've got you, this is the tickets. And then you can find a sofa for 200. Here, look, there's a link for you, a sofa. And then what else do you need? Oh, yeah. There was,
Sorry. Hang on.
oh,
Sorry.
don't worry. He said, there's money for your sofa. And he said money for something else. I can't remember. And then he goes, so when you fly to America, when you get there, you've got this much left over for burgers and fries and a Coke.
Oh my God, it's like your dad.
That's how he came on. I think he thought I was vulnerable for that, I was. I'm like, daddy, but here's my sort of, person that takes care of me now. And he brought along the hardback books, the signed copies, lovely, signed copies of these books. One was called, oh gee, I can't remember. But I do remember one was called White Lies, and there was my new best friend, and we'd talk then, we'd text and we'd talk every goddamn day. And it was, me telling him my personal problems. I was a bit lonely. Oh, you should get a boyfriend, and all this kind. He never flirted with me, and I didn't really fancy him or anything. So it was just, good old fashioned friendship. But I went out, interviewed Bianchi. They paid for me. The hotel was free. The Guardian spoke to them. Gorgeous hotel, Hampton Inn, free, free, free. And when saw Bianchi, they said, ring us straight after you've met him. So rang them, filed over copy for another 3,000 words, came back. They took loads of pictures of me, went round my friend's house, used her house, it was beautiful, took pictures, and it's that dark-haired picture of me with the mirror behind that I use a lot, actually. And then it was due to go in. All of a sudden, Nick rings me, says, "Oh, story's not going to go in." And I said, "Well, why not?" And this is after, I tried to I'd been giving him loads of information about the newspaper, and story's not going to go in. And I said, "Oh, why not?" They said, "Oh, it's the way you wrote it." And I said, "Well, you write it then. You write it." And so okay, I'll write it. So he took it. He said he wrote it up in Guardian style, and he said, "Oh, Merope still doesn't want it." Now, I that doesn't make sense, because if he wrote it in Nick Davies' writing, why don't the Guardian want it?
Yeah, because he's a star player, isn't he?
Exactly. So I thought, I think I was just blagged. I don't think they were going to run the story at
It
all.
sounds like it to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I then this woman Merope, I rang her and I said, because I was angry about it, I wanted this in. Again, I thought it'd help me get closer to Bianchi by saying, "Oh, look, I've done this about you." And she did say to me, "You haven't described him in a way where you're scared of him, etc., etc." And actually, I was scared of Bianchi. I didn't want to put that in there because obviously I still wanted more out of him. And so she wasn't happy that I hadn't said that. I mean, it might have been that, but then she said, "Oh, I'm not happy, the way you write. It's not like the Guardian." I said, "No, I haven't been to Oxford, but Nick Davies has overwritten it, hasn't he?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, 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 he has." Again, I think it was black. So I said, "I'm really upset about this. I'm going to go to the union." And because I remember the union. And she then said, "Well, we can offer you reader's experience." And I said, "Well, I'm not a reader of the Guardian." And she said, "No, we'll cut it down, 200 words from 6,000, and we'll put it in the reader's experience." I said, "Well, how much is that? Because I need to be paid here." So I had expenses. She said, 350 quid. And I was quite annoyed, but I thought it's better than nothing. Anyway, there I am, reader's experience. The title is still online. I befriended a serial killer.
I
What the heck?
remember reading it, Christine, at the time. I read that and
It's
it
still
stood
online.
out to me. So
It's
it's
still
so strange that we're talking now, because I
oh,
remember
yeah.
reading that. It stuck in my mind for some reason.
But there I was doing the school run, and the bloody mothers there, because it was a posh area, they'd all bloody read the Guardian as well. They all saw me, and it was like, it made me look like Little Red Riding Hood. "Oh, I'm off to see a serial killer, and oh, I'm I'm going to befriend him." Now, you can't befriend Bianchi. He injects bleach into women. I'm a woman, so if I'm going to try and make friends with
Sorry for
people,
laughing. Sorry.
he's not gonna like it. He no likey me. I have a vagina. He no likey me. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't make friends with Bianchi. No, won't work. But she did that. Merope Mills did that. I've asked her, "Can you take it down now? You've had your fun and games with me. Take it down." And no, she still won't take it down. I'll send her a copy of this actually. Still refuses to take it down. Nasty, basically. But I also think that the whole thing was a blag and organised by Nick. I might be wrong. But to get more information. But
Yeah, maybe that does sound like there was quite a lot of blagging in. I mean, we'll get you a sofa. Yeah, sorry, this sounds very strange. Anyway, sorry, do go on.
yeah, I got well personal. I mean, literally back and fro with him. I was personal with him. I remember chatting to him when I was sitting on the loo. It was that, telling him, he said, "You on the loo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am," flush the handle. It was that, it was that close with me and he. Nothing sexual, but it was that.
Buddy.
Yeah, but it was that close. And then suddenly, well, he asked me to go on record. That's when I had that weird dream about rabbits, white rabbits everywhere attacking me. And
Oh yeah.
the white rabbits turned around and said, "We're Murdoch's empire." And I rang him. I said, "I'm not going to go on record against the News of the World." He said, "Why not?" I said, "It's just a really scary dream about rabbits." And he was like, "Rabbits?" I said, just no, not going to shit on Murdoch. Just after that dream. And it's scary because I found out after that about, white rabbits and handlers. But, I'm sure no one believed me about that. But I'm sure Nick will testify to it. That,
That's a
I.
whole other show, isn't
But
it?
so I said no, not going to go on record. He was a bit upset about that, but I fed him loads of information. Literally, we had this like toilet buddy chat thing late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing. I assumed, now it's probably really naive of me, and this is how journalists are like. They do this "I'm your best friend" thing, and I knew, but I just thought because he was the Guardian, and the Guardians, even though Merope Mills had shit all over
The
me.
Guardians for nice people.
I thought so, nice
Nice people who
people.
eat quinoa or quinoa or whatever it's called.
Exactly. So I was under this, even though Merope, you know what she did after she put the Little Red Riding Hood story about me? She goes, "We've already paid you far too much. You're not getting the 350." Oh, right in the start. Oh yeah, she's a little sassy little madam, aren't
Old
she?
ropey, eh?
Tell this to, I'm going to send this to her. I'm still angry about the whole bloody thing. Anyway, had to go to the union again. They fought with her. She gave me, I think, 120 quid off it. But I'm still online. So Merope, yeah, you won. High five. Yeah, you can shit on other women. Good on you.
Oh,
Um, anyway, that's her. Nick had a hand to play in that. So then this relationship with me and he went on for over a year. While it was going on, there was whole lots of things happening, people going to prison, and then it came to his book launch. He had a book launch, and I assume him being my best buddy, I would be guest of honor at the party, the book launch.
you would have thought
And
so.
yeah, and I was working with an editor called James Murray from the Sunday Express, who I know very well. I was meeting him weekly at a pub up in near the High Courts. We were this lovely pub with a gorgeous steak, and he was going over a book I'd written called The Phone Hacking, and I basically told the whole story. He was telling me what to write, basically reading over what I'd done, telling me what to write, and he said, "We'll serialize this in the Sunday Express after the trials." Anyway, I think when it came to the trials, Wheating said I was going to go up there to be a witness. I had this cop, DS Michael White from Wheating, minding me again over News of the Bloody World, News International. They seem to think they were going to come and get me, like Sean Hoare. Nothing
Yeah,
happened.
because
So
two journalists were dead already, weren't they? So
yeah, so we got to that point. Next thing, no trial. Got the news through. DS Michael White, not going to be minding you anymore. Won't be in contact now. Thank you for all your help. I thought, what? I've
that's
had all.
weird.
Well, yeah. And what happened? I found out, I think, through Nick. They'd all admitted guilt. Greg, Neville, all of it. I'd never said anything about Neville. I didn't have any knowledge. I liked Neville. I didn't ever say anything about Neville. And all of them, but that were accused, had pleaded guilty. And I said to Nick, or whoever told me, I can't remember now. Might have been Sylvia Jones from the BBC, and no trial, no trial. And I thought, whoa, that is bad. That is bad. But I thought, well, hang on, we got the Nick Davies book, and I wanted John to be written about. Now, it wasn't what it was. I was very angry with him at that time because I'd found out that he'd, brought in all that, and he should have asked me. He shouldn't have done it, and he ruined private investigations in future. I was livid with him,
Yeah.
and I kept writing him nasty emails. He would then ring me, say, "Please don't do it," and I would say, "I hate you, John. I can't do all my feelings towards you," because I'd been poor for a long, long time, and he knew that. He'd literally bought me round blankets one time when I was in a bedsit couldn't afford blankets, and he knew what kind of life I'd had in care. I had found someone for myself, and he had basically took it down for me. And I said, John, I can't cope. I hate you. I wish you'd never been born. I can't cope with my feelings. And he would counsel me and say, you know, I know someone who's got MS, they're in a wheelchair. You know, some guy as well that had fallen off a garage. He said, it's happened. You've got to deal with it. And I would cry and say, sorry, I sent you that bad email, and then come off the phone. And a couple of weeks later, I'd send him another email saying, I wish you'd never been born. You screwed up my life. And so that was our relationship at that time. And I know it sounds horrid, but to deal with my hatred, that because, you know, I hadn't got a house, I was in rented, I had no accommodation, I couldn't get a job, in my investigations field, and couldn't say I'd worked for the press, wasn't wanted in the press either. I was screwed, and I had a child, and his father, wasn't paying anything, and I was just, and I was literally falling down a deep hole. And he's a multimillionaire, and he had done it, and he'd gotten away with it. And I thought, though this is mean, I thought, well, Nick Davies has exposed you in his book, you bastard. And but I didn't say this to him, but I was thinking it. And Nick had come to me, and Nick was saying on our little meetings at the tennis club over lunch, he said, oh, I've got hold of his ex-office manager called Norman. Norman is telling me about running prostitutes, high-class escorts. He's telling me about these rubber leather parties with MPs. He's telling me about providing prostitutes for MPs and top cops. And he's telling me about cocaine parties and these like rubber leather whipping parties. And I knew all about it. I knew all about it. One time I had been homeless, and I hadn't been working for John. I'd been dotting around the agencies, and I rang John and said, oh, I'll come to work for you, or come back to work for you. And I didn't like working for him because, again, he had this little basement. He didn't put me in the basement, obviously, because I was senior to people that did that kind of stuff. He'd give me my own office, but I just didn't like working for him. There was just something about it. I just thought, I just don't like being there. Anyway, I rang him and said, I'm homeless. And he goes, oh, we'll go to a certain address. And it was in London, a really nice area of London. And I don't know if it's Piccadilly or Mayfair, somewhere around there. It was a gorgeous house, and no one was in it. I had the run of it. Had a beautiful bedroom, all like, it was just damn nice. And Norman used to come, and I thought, what are we doing here, Norman? He's not the type to come on to me or anything like that. But I remember thinking, oh, what are you doing here? And he was like, oh, I'm just staying here as well for a while. So there he was, floating around the house in his silk dressing gown. But, I just didn't want him there, I wanted it to myself. Anyway, one night there I was, got out of bed, went to the toilet, and there was about 10 girls in the bloody living room. Stunning, stunning, stunning girls. And women, I suppose. And I thought, what is this? What's going on? And there was cocaine there, and there was Norman with all these women draped over him, and him in his little silky dressing gown. I thought, what is going on? And anyway, went and I felt tatty compared to them. They were really good looking. Sat on the edge of an armchair, and they said, you should get involved in our game. You'd make a lot of money. And a penny dropped, they were hookers. And found out the next morning, went into the office, asked one of the secretaries, and it was like, oh, that's John's girls. So when I didn't want to know about all this, I started talking loudly around the office about cocaine and hookers. And John said, you can't really stay there. I'll get you somewhere else. So he got me a flat. And I was out of the house.
So you bagged him that time.
Well, I didn't mean
Good
to.
on you.
Yeah, but I didn't mean to. I was just, whoa, these girls were like stunning, and their clothes. And so I just thought, whoa, this is like amazing. So
Well,
I
he
was
was
talking
running an escort agency, wasn't he?
know what was going on. I think it was maybe to blackmail MPs. I don't know. I can't say. I don't want to get in deep shit.
No,
We'll see.
yeah, well, that's true. But
Yeah, but what was interesting, what I thought
mm,
was interesting, and kudos to Nick Davies over this point, he found all this out. How he found out, I have no idea. But he came to the club one day and he spewed all this out in front of me, and even the rubber lever and the whipping and all that, and the MPs. And I had only heard that because one time I was out with John having dinner. I had an affair with him, as you know.
yeah,
He started talking to me about whipping and all this kind of stuff, and these parties and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, say no more. So what Nick was saying to me wasn't in a strange language, and he goes, "Do you know about any of this?" And I was like, "No, never heard, never heard." And he goes, "Have you heard of Norman?" I said, "No, I've never heard of Norman." I know him really well. I'd lived with him
I
practically,
don't
and I
blame you. I
didn't
wonder
want to
how he
get.
got Norman to talk. I wonder how Nick Davies got Norman to talk. Had Norman fallen out with John, do you think?
I don't know. I don't even know whether he did get Norman to talk, and he was just telling me that he did, or did he get no? But
Yeah, but how come he knew so much?
how come he found bloody Norman? I mean, how did he find him? So I was quiet. I thought, whoa, Nick, you're like amazing. I remember thinking at the time, I really want to be like you. You're not like Greg. You're not dirty. You're bloody with your posh voice and your lovely skin, and you're so kind, and you talk like that.
Sorry.
You put your little hand over mine, and everything will be all right. You'll get your new settee and your Coke and burgers, and we'll make you a Guardian. You'll get your stuff printed in the Guardian now. And I just sucked it all up. And it's not that I fell in love with him or anything, but it's just like I thought, wow, you're amazing. And now you even know about John's personal business. He knew everything. And I thought, what? And I got very excited around the point where I was sending hate mail to John. It's horrible to think about it, but I couldn't control myself. And but I did know him well, and I suppose it's not like hate mail. I was just saying I wish you'd never been born. If you'd never been born, I would have a good life right now, but instead that I'm living in fear and squalor, and so's my child. And and that's carried on. I've sort of gone down, down, down. And so I was dealing with that because I could also see what was on the cards. And I thought, oh, you've got it coming, John. You're going to just be revealed for absolutely everything. Forever, there's going to be a big chapter about you, and it's going to be every dot, even the girls, and the white powder, and the whips, and the blindfolds, and the MPs. And I was salivating. I know it's horrible, because he was my friend and lover.
Yeah, but he
But
did dirty on you, didn't he?
well, he just took it, and I think he took it and thought, "There, Chris, you just some scummy working class bastard, and crawl back under your stone." I think that was in his mind, and I think he sat on the edge of my bed and asked for my mobile, and he didn't even need my mobile. So that's what I know about John. Yeah, he just ground his heel on me. And how about telling me, even Greg telling me what they were up to, and even asking my opinion on it? No, well, that's why they crashed, because I know what I would have said about it. It's stupid. Anyway, back to Nick. The book was going to come out. This is the point. The trial had, there was no trial now. I wasn't going to be a witness. I wasn't going to get in that dock. I wasn't going to speak about John. I wasn't going to speak about the whole thing. James, oh God, the Sunday Express editor, James, and I can't remember his second name now. Isn't that crazy? He said to me, the editor, he said, orders on high, nothing about the phone hacking. I couldn't find a publisher for my book that I'd spent over a year writing with James, and he wasn't going to do the serialization. It was literally, I thought, what is going on? I thought, okay, I'm not going to get a book out of it. Not going to be able to, provide for my son or anything. But at least Nick Davies will have this all this stuff that he's found out about John in his book. And I hadn't confirmed it. I hadn't taken part in any of it. I thought, I don't want, because I was scared of John, basically. At this point, fear, my just bitterness at life has overtaken the fear. Anyway, fear, too scared to talk about it. So I hadn't corroborated it at all. I just said I don't know him, and I don't know Norman. Never heard of any of this, but oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, so first thing I heard was he was having a launch party for the book, and I saw it online, and I was like, what? And I think it came out on his Twitter or something like that. I said, what? And I put on my Facebook, can't believe I helped Nick Davies with his book and he's left me out of his party. Hashtag bastard. And I went off to Kew Gardens that day with Arthur. All of a sudden, my phone rang. Nick from his home, which I had his home 9. And he said, what's the matter? What's the matter? And I said, oh, nothing. It's okay. You had a party and you left me out. Friend, toilet friend at 1 o'clock in the morning, have a party and I'm not there. I thought we were best mates. You know, at that point, the penny had dropped over. I was just a skank and, you know, working class skank. And so, not offending anyone that's listening is working class, but, you know, I'm saying that's how he looked at me through his eyes. Yeah.
And that's
There was
how
no
John Boyle looked at you, do you think?
Yeah, I do.
So there's a class angle to this.
Oh, they're
Very,
very
very
much.
much so.
Yeah, they're
Sorry,
very much.
Chris. Do go on.
Yeah. There is, and of course I'm from care systems, so I'm treated accordingly. Anyway, so which is why the MI6 guy was giving me jobs where I might get beaten up. You know, I'm the skank in the story that gets left out of the story. Anyway, so Nick Davies, I said, why was I invited to the party? By the time, you know, actually by the time he rang me, I was at Kew Gardens eating a burrito with my son. I just thought, fuck your stinking party anyway. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, Chris. I thought you wanted to remain hidden. That's why I left you out of the party. And I thought, you're just blagging me. So
Yeah.
I said, no, it's okay, actually, Nick. It's okay. I didn't want to come to the party anyway. And next thing, the book, I don't know where I got it from, whether he sent it to me or I'm sure I didn't pay for it. That's for damn sure. Anyway, it got delivered and I was excited to get to the John Boyle chapter because I thought maybe there's more stuff that I didn't even know about John. And it's going to be so exciting to read. It's going to be like Stephen Ward and, you know, in bloody kind of
Yeah.
things. Kind of, he's the same type of character actually. Anyway, so flicking through the book, I thought, oh, I can't see him. So I thought, oh, Chris, read it slowly. Got in the bath, read it through. Not only was I not in there, okay, well, I'm the skank of the story. I'll be left out. No chapter on John. I think he was mentioned, but he could have been talking about the cat or something.
Yeah.
I think he said something like, one sentence said, oh, Glenn Mulcahy used to work for a man called John Boyle, and that was it. Anyway, I rang Nick, livid. I said, oh, I'm not actually in the book. And he goes, you are, you're in the list of private investigators on the back. And I'm like, oh, what about all the help I gave you? And he said, oh, no, I've mentioned that page 199. And there's a character called York. And it says, York tried to help me, but couldn't. I
Oh,
know.
that is scandalous. That
I
is
know.
terrible. Bloody. Oh, what a tosser.
I said to him, oh, first of all, I said, why didn't you name me? You know, I'm trying to write a book. I've written a book, but nobody's interested in it. So I could have, you know, I said to him before it came out, oh, Nick, mention me and mention the title of my book. I'm going to call it The Phone Hacking Affair. Can you mention that? He was going, yeah. So not only did he leave that out, but he called me a fake name. And then he twisted it that, oh, I thought you wanted that. I mean, it reminded me of when I did a story in Belfast for Greg from the News of the World. And it was a gun running story. And I got the juice, got why they were shooting each other, came back looking forward to seeing my name on it on Sunday. Opened the newspaper, he put a fake byline, James Fitzpatrick, and I rang him at home on the Sunday, livid. Why did you do that? I worked so hard. I was going to be so proud to have my name on it. And he said, oh, you told me you wanted to stay quiet. Now, Nick used the same blag on me. Oh, you told me you wanted to stay quiet. Now, I distinctly remember telling him,
No.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I mean, this sounds like damage limitation to me. it sounds like Nick Davies played the role of a damage limitation operator, and
What
he
do you
got
mean?
all he could out of everybody, out of all of the players. He got all the information, then
Hmm.
decided what was going to be filtered and what was going to be put out for the public narrative. So who is he working for then? Who are
I
these
know,
Labour
I know,
MPs?
I know he said about these left-wing politicians were backing him because he said to me, "Don't worry, I have very powerful people backing me." And I said, "The Guardian." He laughed. He said, This is politics. This is politics."
I wonder who they were. Have you got any ideas?
No, no. But he was being followed all the time, and I said, "Who you being followed by?" He said, "Doesn't matter, Chris." He said, "But this is dangerous." So I don't know. I really don't know. But I just don't understand why. I mean, not being funny, I know it's the Guardian, but things like that sort of rubber leather and MPs, they salivate over that just the same. And to find that out, to find it out, it's not that he didn't know. He told me that. I denied it. I said, "Oh, I've never heard about that." And he goes, "Oh, we've got all this bank to rights." And I'm like, "Oh." And to not have it in there. And I had to go at him. I said, I sent him an email. I was so angry. I said, "What kind of investigative journalist are you? You're somebody that I look up to and other people look up to. And you've written that book. And actually, not only does it make out Mulcair is a private investigator, which he's not, he's a skip tracer. And that's why it all went wrong. You left out that Greg nicked him as the office boy. Oh, and you left out John Ball." And he sent me an email back. And I've got copies of this easy. I know my laptop's been nicked, but no, sadly for Nick, I've sent them on to another powerful person who's got them stored. He
Good
came
for
back.
you, Christine.
Oh yeah, he came back to me and he said, "Oh, because actually, I remember going to write to Nick a bit after this and putting in, when you put in someone's email and their email comes up, especially if you've been emailing them, not I put in
Yeah,
Nick,
yeah, yeah.
come up. It didn't come up, and I thought, what? And I went in my emails, nothing from him in there, nothing from. And I thought, oh really, really? Oh, I've been hosed dry. Well, sadly, they've been forwarded to some. They will never find out who. In fact, there's two people. They won't ever find out who that is. No,
Good
they won't.
girl.
Anyway, so they've got copies of these.
I
Oh, and
wonder.
I printed out hard copy as well, and that's been stored anywhere else with somebody too, and the contract, all the contracts, so nobody will be able to deny this. Anyway, then
Yeah.
he says to me, "Oh, John is in it. He's on page 30." I looked at page 30. Oh, he's mentioned his name. Oh, just a name. And he said he stuck up for himself. I said, "You know what I mean." And he said, I said, "All that stuff that you came out." He said, "Oh, Chris, legals, legals,
He said legals. Oh my
legals." Oh,
God.
is that what passes for investigative journalism right now? Yeah, and yet he's posing as I got the whole story. Well, no, you didn't, mate. If it's legal, say it's legals. Anyway, then I rang James Hanning, who was very angry because his book, The News Machine, where he did mention a little bit of John. Because I had spoken to him. I'd spoken to James Hanning. We went out to dinner. Anyway, James Hanning did a little story. It's still online if you put in my name with Glenn Mulcair. Still online. I just said a tiny little thing. I'd said a lot behind the scenes to James, but I'd said a tiny little thing, and James quoted it. Anyway, John had the cheek, and this is where John and I parted our ways. John rang me and said, "Oh, I see you spoke to the Independent about me." I said, "Did I?" And he goes, "You know you did." He said, "You and I finished." And I thought, "Oh, have we? I'm dealing with hatred for you. I'm sending you hate mail because I can't cope with it, the whole bloody thing." And he had tried to calm me down by introducing me to lawyers he knew. And there was one lawyer who was investigating J.K. Rowling, that J.K. Rowling hadn't hadn't invented Harry Potter. It was another author. Anyway, I was working on this case, and yeah, they were paying me money for it, but it was difficult. It was nigh impossible, really, to do. I did actually believe it. I'd seen this other person's book that they had sent to the same agent. Anyway, won't talk about that too much. But so he had been trying to get me work, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was like, once in a while, and it was like, it was just like a joke. I had my career in Fleet Street, and he'd taken it off me. And anyway, he rang me, and he said, "You spoke to the Independent about me." I said, "Well, I don't think I said very much." Indeed, it doesn't say very much. It's still online. I didn't. It doesn't look as if I've said very much. And so he said to me, "We're finished." I thought, "Oh, we're finished, are we? Our good relationship is finished now, has it?" And he said, "Don't contact me again. I won't have that email." Indeed, he hasn't got that email now. He's changed his phone number, and he said, I think he's changed his phone number. I haven't rung it actually. He said, "You," he said, "You make me sick. Someone like you, betraying a betraying a friend for shackles." He said that to me.
What a hypocrite. What I'd like to know is who was Nick
And I
Davies working for, really?
Yeah, I didn't get paid, by the way, from James Harringer, but
Oh,
James Harringer was very annoyed with Nick Davies about the whole thing too. And I had dinner with him fairly recently. He was asking me about the Princess Diana, about blagging Princess Diana, and he wanted me to do a story with Hacked Off. I said I haven't got a very good relationship with those people since they burgled me. They deny that, but who else would? Anyway, yeah, Nick Davies. I don't know. I still don't know. But reading about this Judd Apatow thing and reading that he was going to get George Clooney, he was off. I think he was paid a couple of million for George Clooney to option. When I had dealings with Graham Johnson and Hacked Off, Graham Johnson said that movie's never going to get made. And of course, he knows Hugh Grant. And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Just don't worry about it. But it's never going to get made." So I think he was given, this other couple of million. What was that for? Just to shut up
mm,
further. And I know he's retired now. Well, who wouldn't with all that mums? And now, of course, all these documentary makers are doing these documentaries on the news of the world, and they've come to me to talk. I mean, what aspect? They seem to be homing in on Mazza a lot. But then one of them told me, one of them has filmed me already. It's supposed to be coming out this year. The other one, and they asked me about Boyle a lot. And then the other one, um, rang and said, well, would it be filmed and would Mazza go on record? I said, he's got a contract out in his life. He's not going to, because this guy said to me, this producer said, but he's been left out of the story. Won't he want to be relevant again? I said, mate, he's got a gangland contract out on him. He's not going to want to come forward. Doesn't matter about being on Instagram or being relevant.
yeah. It'll be
That's
irrelevant in another way.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
No, you'll never get him. It's silly to sort of ask, really. This guy was very nice, but he didn't know actually. So he said, "I
yeah. But
know."
there's so many aspects to this. It is like a big octopus.
But yeah,
But
I don't understand about what's going to go on with this Judd Apatow movie and why the renewed interest.
and why not? Well, like I said, I think it's because Rupert Murdoch has come back into the public limelight because of the launch of this new news outlet. But that can't be the whole story. Something else is going on. So
Something.
it's coming up to the end of the show. So in the next couple of shows, we'll cover Mazza. Well, that's definitely 2 hours worth, and we'll talk about Brian Harvey as well.
Well, we did a bit. I don't want to cover
No,
him
I'm
too much.
not bashing Brian Harvey, but he's he's
Yeah.
he's sharing, he's uploading on YouTube every day stuff about the phone hacking.
Oh, I haven't
So
seen
we've
him.
got
Oh,
you're
yes, I
gonna,
did.
sorry.
I did, yeah, I did see one of the. I always wonder why he doesn't mention John Boyle and Andy Gadd. He wanted his phone number off me one time. I was going to give it. Interestingly, John used to have a band that he ran. He's interested. So I don't know. If someone like Brian Harvey contacted him, might he be seduced by Brian? If he's not, I mean, nobody gets near him. Operation Wheating was stopped at his gates of his estate by his barrister. So I mean, I don't know, but he's dying now. I mean, he's knocking on a bit. I mean, he was I think 20 years older than me. He's he's sort of getting into sort of older age. I think maybe even older than that. And he, I mean, what's his life about? Does he really want? I remember meeting him once and saying, that he's always left out. It must have been after Nick Davies' book, and I think we had breakfast up near Williams' offices, and he brought me some halloumi cheese breakfast, and I said to him, one day I'm going to write about you, and he laughed, and I said, no, I am, and he laughed again. He looked at me. I saw a little bit of fear in his eye, and I said, but don't worry, I'll portray you as how you are, a little James Bond character. He is. That's why I don't really understand why. But then, there's people like Sylvia Jones, the BBC journalist, who wanted to make a documentary for Channel 4 about him. And she said, I've got loads more information. And I said, like, loads more other stuff that he was doing. And I said, like, what? She goes, far worse than phone hacking. She goes, but I can't tell you, but it'll be in the documentary. Anyway, next thing, she rings me, it's not taking part. So I said, why not? She goes, kicked back by Channel 4. And I said, oh. And she was really upset. And I said, why though? And she said, Top Cops. He worked for Top Cops. And I said, I know he was in with the ex-MI6 boys, but I wasn't aware of that. She said, he worked for them. He worked for them, but I don't know what. So I said, well, what was going on? But she had all this and she was going to reveal it. And anyway, it got kicked back.
I'm detecting blackmail. I think
What?
there was a lot. I think there was a lot of blackmail going on.
The sex parties and the rubber leather.
The MPs, because remember what years was this? Who was in power? It was Tony Blair, wasn't it? No, sorry, it wasn't Tony Blair, was it? It was
Cameron.
Yeah, right. So the left wing MPs wanting to do stuff because Cameron was in with buddies with Rebecca Brooks, so they had a bit of a buddy thing going. That would make sense. The MPs and the sex parties and all that sounds like blackmail. So he was a Mr. Fix-It for that. So yeah, it makes sense that he would be working for somebody above him. It's kind of coming together a bit, but
hang on, not for me. Sorry, explain that a bit more. So, okay, so you got Cameron in power, and you've got somebody that can get MPs in compromising positions, and he would have fed them to who?
I don't know. Get them to do what they want.
So John would be establishment because obviously,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And obviously, he's right wing as a day is long. He's public school boy. So
that would be, and Nick.
Oh, hang on. That would be surely anti the left. So, but hang on, that would mean the guy, the Nick Davies was working for the left. So why didn't he expose his book then?
Why did Nick what?
Why didn't Nick, if he's left wing, why didn't he expose it in his book then? In that case, surely that would have been a major coup.
I know you would think so. Somebody's lent on him. Somebody's lent on him and told him he can't mention John Boyle. If like John Boyle was working for the Top Cops, if this was going way up high, then there was only so much. Remember, Nick was presenting a narrative, wasn't he? He was doing the Guardian, we are for the people, we are, and all that. He was doing that bit, he was playing that role, he was presenting a narrative, it was damage control. But ultimately, everybody is working for people higher than them, and they're just trying to control everything. That's how it looks to me, anyway. I haven't got any hard evidence, obviously, but
so maybe they were trying to control because I know the news of the world were into blackmail. I saw one of it go on, Martin McCutcheon and all that. You had a miscarriage, say you lost your baby, or I call you a baby killer on the front pages. And that went on. And I saw it and I was like, whoa, they really did it. So, and I told that story to Nick. Oh, that's not in his book either. You'd think that'd be fairly interesting, but never mind. And the SAS going into the school for Noel Gallagher's love child.
Yeah, I remember you talking about
Yeah,
that.
nobody's interested in that. Why is that then? So
Well, you think
maybe,
so?
maybe it's maybe they want to cover up that sex blackmail stuff. Then maybe those parties, maybe they were filmed. Maybe I don't know. Cameron was involved, maybe, or one of them was involved in all that, and so they can pull strings to not get that revealed. Maybe Davies came across that. He might have done.
Well, if he knew everything about
Foil.
Norman, if not, how come Norman spilled everything to him? If that's true,
Somebody spilled things.
maybe he was just saying that to you. Somebody has told him all that information. So, and you've corroborated that. You've
No. I
yeah.
didn't corroborate it with him. I didn't tell him about that
No,
story
but
that I just.
you've corroborated it now.
Oh yeah.
So you know that was true about what Norman was up to.
Yeah.
So
But I got out of that house pretty quickly, and that it didn't feel nice because I was happy there, and I got shipped out. I think on that very day that I started walking around the office talking about it,
yeah.
which
So
upset me.
he had a lot to hide.
Well, I think he thought, oh, I got a big mouth. I think maybe hadn't I have said anything, I might have just been, I don't know, might have got roped into it all. I don't know.
We've still got to talk about Hacked Off as well.
He
Uh,
asked, he
and
asked
then
me, sorry, he asked me about that. He said, would you be into that coming along? If I remember rightly now, God, I'm trying to think because I
Nick
remember
Davies asked you.
what?
Nick Davies asked you
Oh,
about.
John over dinner.
Oh right, John. Okay, right.
Yeah, but I'm thinking at a time that you shouldn't be telling me. I remember thinking, why are you telling me this? Why you shouldn't be telling me? So I kind of didn't want to hear. And um, I think you tried to tell me one time.
Mm, fascinating stuff. Honestly, it's like
So,
go
so
on.
do you think it was a blackmail operation? Maybe that's what Jones found out. She said it was far worse than phone hacking.
Yeah,
Maybe it was her she's got contacts. I mean, she's mega, maybe she found that out, wanted to take. She said it's an amazing story. She said, "Would you be filmed talking about John?" I said, "Oh, I don't mind." So maybe there was a blackmail operation. Maybe they found that out, and maybe someone somewhere used it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Cameron or someone used it, and now if it comes out, there'll be a real box of tricks.
expose. Yeah, Pandora's box will be on.
Maybe they
Sorry.
got power from it or something. Even
Well, somebody needed to control the politicians, and it's an age-old trick, isn't it?
but
And
who was?
obviously,
Yeah, who's doing that?
and why? I mean, I suppose we'd have to think about what was going on politically at the time, what was going on internationally at the time. Was there any big votes? Just casting our net wide, was there any big important votes in Parliament that were to do with defence or something like that? I mean, because there's all the rumours about dodgy stuff that went on, for the weapons of mass destruction and Gulf War One and all that, and Tony Blair. Um,
I know that Phil Hall, as I said that time before, that because I used to go out with Phil Hall. He was the one that did that story on me and Brady when I was 21. When I was waiting for Greg, in the office, like at the end, sort of, he would say about 9 o'clock, "Do you feel like a drink?" I would then meet him up in the office, and he would normally be on the phone, so I would be waiting, sometimes up to an hour. But that's the way he was. And once I thought I would snoop in Phil Hall's office. He was like Andy Coulson's position. And I remember snooping in his desk. It wasn't locked. I went in his office, wasn't locked. Went in his desk, wasn't locked. I thought that was pretty stupid. Anyway, looked in his desk, see what I could find personal. Let's see, you know, what kind of man he'd grown into. Because we didn't speak. Our eyes would meet at a Christmas party, but no words, you know. And we'd dated and, you know, slept together and everything. And he'd ruined my life by calling me the devil's daughter, but literally we wouldn't say hello. And anyway, so even though I was like working for him, no hellos. Anyway, I went through his diary, and there it was, meeting Blair, meeting Blair, meeting Blair for breakfast. So he was meeting Blair for breakfast. So obviously knew this world was really in with Blair.
So News of the World, The Sun, they're part of Murdoch's empire, aren't they?
Yeah.
What other newspapers were part of Murdoch's empire at the time?
I'm Sunday Times, who I work for. I was probably sucked into them under orders. I think that put my life at danger, because when Liam Clark sucked me in to the Sunday Times, and I'm not really educated enough for the Sunday Times, you know, but I got sucked in working for them, got my byline given to me, no problem. They obviously Murdoch, and I remember the Sunday Times editor introduced me to the UDA. Now the UDA are opposite the Real IRA. And when I sort of got close to the UDA, they were like, "Oh, hang, you're that Real IRA supporter." I said, "I'm not a Real IRA supporter." They said, "How come your stories on the Real IRA are so bang on?" And I said, "Well, I know the boys down in Dundalk." And they were like, "What the hell are you involved with us for?" And that was thanks to Liam Clark. So I'm sitting thinking now that maybe me getting my byline in the Sunday Times, which I've obviously got copies of and framed because, you know, it's the Sunday Times, maybe that was sort of screwing around with me, you know, sort of trying to put me in danger. I mean, you never know how they sort of
Well, it's
play.
like being exposed as a double agent, almost, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and
To one of the people that
yeah,
you bloody
that,
yeah, that
that's
does
what
sound weird.
that's what yeah, that I left. Okay, some of it was, you know, my own doing. I didn't need to invite them around my house, but you know, I left. I left there. I thought this. There was something about the smell of it. I thought this. I'm in a dangerous position here. They're all
Yeah, I
coming.
think you did the right thing. You probably might have ended up dead. I mean, look at what was it, that Veronica Guerin that was shot.
Well, she did. I have to say about that. I know she's got a movie made about her, but you don't go and knock on a gangster's door and say, "I'm going to grass you up to the Inland Revenue." I mean, you just don't.
Oh, I
She
didn't know
must.
she did that.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Yeah,
crazy. No offense
yeah.
to
No,
good.
that is, yeah, yeah, that's irresponsible. Right, well, we'll end it there. So that's 2 hours. Well, thanks very much, Christine. It's been absolutely fascinating and intriguing, as usual. Lots to think about there. Lots to think
Yeah, I
about.
have to just add, you never know who's
Of
listening to this,
course.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
that I have documents and emails and recorded telephone conversations, and they're with somebody, and nobody will know who that person is. I'm not connected with them in any way, not via email, not by phone. It's just word of mouth using a public phone box. And this is someone else put me in contact with, and all the documents are with them. So if anything happens to me, if I get beaten up or murdered or anything like that, that gets released, and there's a lot there. So I'm just, you know, making that clear to everybody. I was told to do that by somebody a while ago, and that's all there. Everything's there, all the stuff as well from Hacked Off, all the phone calls, all the threats, everything's there, and that will be released if anything happens to me.
So what would you like to talk about in the next show? So we've got Hacked Off, we've got Mazza, we've got Brian Harvey, and we've got phone hacking coming back into the public's awareness. What would you like to cover next time?
I don't know. We probably could do Mazza. I don't mind doing Mazza.
I think we should do Mazza because that timeline wise, it'd be really relevant. But thank you, Chris. It's been absolutely fascinating. I'm Joanna Greasley, Chris's co-host on Spectre Detectives. We will be continuing with our series about phone hacking. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and maybe go away and do a bit of research yourself. Have a look at Christine's books that she's written. She's quite prolific. She's got a blog and YouTube channel as well. So thank you very much, and thanks, Christine.
There's a new book coming out, hopefully. I'm just speaking.
Oh, lovely.
So,
What's that called?
fingers crossed. It's untitled as yet. It might be called The Adoption or An Adoption. Just it's my life story, but everything's going to be included in it. So yeah.
Fabulous. We shall look forward to that. All right, thanks, Christine.
Thanks ever so much. Thanks, listeners, for listening to the show.
Yeah.
And thank you, John, for interviewing me. Really, really good interviewer.
We are the Spectre Detectives. Rely on us for the inside info. All right. Bye.
Hey, bye-bye.